think we have my PowerPoint up. Is that correct? And is my camera on? It doesn't. It is. Okay, great. Okay. Hello, everyone. I can't see you, but maybe you can see me. I hope that's true. Thank you so much, Jess, and thanks to OSV for sponsoring this webinar. I do appreciate all their support. And I would like to say hello to my friends. Thank you for being here at this webinar. It's really a pleasure for me to be here with you. If you haven't met me before, I've spent 35 years developing family catechetical opportunities, studying, writing, and speaking about them. Everything I share is from my research-based experience. In other words, I share about what I have led and experienced with families over the years. These experiences have been in parishes where I've served and in parishes and dioceses where I've served as consultant. I also draw from my own research what I've conducted, as well as from the vast published research that I have been able to find about family catechesis. I've done numerous presentations over the years about family catechesis. What I want to share in this webinar is about a specific model of family faith formation that I've been working on for these 30-some years. I know at this time when the church is searching for ways to engage families and parents, there are a number of programs and approaches, and I affirm and support the many ways to engage families through prayer, worship, and service, sacramental preparation, social opportunities. But in this time with you, I want to focus on a specific model of family catechesis that I believe can be successfully adapted by providing 3 essential components that I'll be telling you about. I want to share this with you for 5 reasons. 1, I know it's effective and that it engages children, adolescents, and adults. 2, it does not burden a parish financially. It does not require expensive materials or resources. It adapts mostly what you probably already use, and the additional resources are more creative than costly. 3, it does not throw the baby out with the bathwater. By that I mean, I have a concern that in the attempt to create family engagement in faith formation of children, some models have abandoned systematic comprehensive catechesis for children and adolescents and are not providing adult opportunities for them to grow in their faith at appropriate developmental levels. I don't think we only want our children to be provided systematic catechesis if they're in a Catholic school. All of our Catholic children should be educated in the beauty and richness of the Catholic faith. After all, we promised this at their baptism. 4, this model honors a church document that proclaims that the childhood religious awakening, which takes place in the family, is irreplaceable, and family catechesis precedes, accompanies, and enriches all forms of catechesis. So along with systematic comprehensive catechesis for all ages, there is an intentional component of this model that nurtures faith formation in the family and supports parents in their mission to pass on the Catholic faith to their children. And finally, 5, this model recognizes the importance and values of religious socialization. This is something that has long been an element of Catholic education, but rarely has been part of a traditional model of religious education where parents drop off children and they're somewhere in the parking lot, perhaps, until it's time to pick them up. This model engenders religious socialization. I've always loved that little childhood rhyme, here is the church, here is the steeple. But my daughter and I, my daughter, having grown up watching me in ministry, knew the many situations and people we encounter. When she saw me minister in challenging situations, we would say this little rhyme and slightly change the words and smile. Here is the church, here is the steeple, open the door, here comes everybody. So we know when we open our parishes and our hearts to families, it really can feel like here comes everybody. A family catechetical model is more complicated than a catechetical model that invites children in one grade level at a time and parents not with them, or parents are running errands or tending to something else in their life. But we know we have to be better. And just because something is easier doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. This family catechetical model, transform, as I describe here, is a better and an achievable way to catechize, support, and nurture families in faith. If we want faith to bond in a child in a way that will stick throughout a lifetime, we can't continue assuming the dry cleaning catechetical model is effective. We have to be honest. Parents can't drop off their children for a few hours a few times a month and pick them up Christianized, as the research describes it. For children to develop a sticky faith, a faith that sticks for a lifetime, we have to cultivate faith practices and faith conversations with families who are engaged in church. We know two essential factors are significant, and they are one, that parents are more intentionally engaged in the faith of their kids, and two, that children are catechized in an intergenerational setting as well as an age-specific setting. Dr. Christian Smith said, "It doesn't work to outsource a child's spiritual growth. Put simply, we are called to partner with parents." I have a lighthearted way of calling this the Goldilocks catechetical approach to integrated family faith formation. Uh, it's not too little, not too difficult, not too different. So it's not too little engagement in the parish. The expectation of parents is reasonable, but enough to be effective. The expectation of the parish is more than just an exclusive grade level catechesis, but again, achievable. It is not too difficult because the two new elements are one, intentional faith formation, and there is intergenerational faith formation. There's a plethora of intergenerational material available. And two, religious socialization, which requires a climate of hospitality to parents and families. More than anything, that should be our posture of evangelization that we're called to be as church. And I think as we go through the elements, I don't think you're going to find that this is different than many things we've already do, that ways we serve in catechetical ministry. I don't claim this model is perfect. I learn every time I implement it to do it better. And every year we can improve. But I do believe in the words of Goldilocks, it's just right for today. So how I got here. I got here not because I understood that this was an important way to catechize families. I, by accident, was asked to serve in a program that was implementing this, piloting this program, Family Time by Paulus Press. And that was 35 years ago. I really didn't think it was going to work very well because I was very focused on Catholic education. I had been a Catholic school teacher, and my goal in religious education was to make it a really good school. And when I bumped into this approach, I was really concerned that I wouldn't know how to do it. But then I all of a sudden understood that this was more like my big Italian family. As I came to experience and lead this type of formation, an intergenerational model of faith formation, I went from critic to champion of it. What I recognized in intergenerational faith community and what was making it work, I began to see was similar to the elements that I had in my big Italian extended family. I knew from my family experience what elements to nurture in a church model. I knew it had to be warm, welcoming, accepting, meaningful, where, as David Sinis says, everyone has a seat at the table. It did not need to be perfect, but it needed to be inclusive. The gatherings did not need to be Martha Stewart beautiful, but they needed to be organized the way Sunday dinner was at my Nana's house. There needed to be preparation and organization, and then to be flexible when everyone was invited and when everyone arrived. I knew from this heritage of my experience, food and conversation would draw people together. I knew ritual would be valuable to create the sense of belonging for everyone. The ritual, I realized, was inherent in my Italian family. When to gather? Sunday afternoon. Who first tasted the tomato sauce simmering on the stove? Uncle Joe. Where did Papa, my grandfather, sit? At the head of the table, nearest the door, where he would greet everyone as they walked in, as if he was so delighted to see you, giving you a big, whiskery, scratchy hug and some Italian greeting that you didn't understand, but you knew was good. When I connected intergenerational faith formation to my family experience, I realized I didn't need to know all the answers, but I did have to be willing to try some new things based on my lived experience in my big Italian family. From that time on, 35 years ago, I have developed different family programs. One I have nurtured since 1995. In this family model, there's at least one parent, a grandparent, or a guardian who attends with the child. In this model, childcare is available for children under 3, and catechesis starts at 3 and goes through high school and through adulthood. What I have seen is this approach change the culture of a parish. When in the parish that I've done this, we have 80 some zip codes coming into the parish. And I believe I've helped parishes in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee and many parishes across the country. What I would like to see are more faith communities benefiting from the grace and growth we have witnessed in parishes that have approached adopted this approach. And I think the question might be, why? Why now? Why integrated family faith formation now? I would say that the thing that's been most helpful to me has been to understand church teaching and research, and that when we look at that as a Venn diagram, that gives us an opportunity. And so let's just look just briefly at church teaching. Not that I have time in this webinar to give you everything that I should be giving you in terms of church teaching, but let's just lay some foundational um, elements about what the church tells us. In the new directory for catechesis, it presents family as a central catechetical ministry of the church's future. It says the family is a community of love and life made up of complex interpersonal relationships through which each human person is introduced to the human family and to the family of God, which is the church. And so the directory presents family catechesis in three ways. One, catechesis in the family, emphasizing the central role of the family in nurturing faith. Catechesis with the family, emphasizing the role of the parish community in forming the faith of families centered on the kerygma, and catechesis of the family, emphasizing the role of the family in proclaiming the gospel. The directory says believing in parents with their daily example of life have the most effective capacity to transmit the beauty of the Christian faith to their children. So we know faith begins at home in the family, and the family provides the first context of faith that most children will have. I always like to say parents aren't the problem, parents are the solution. So when we look at the other part of the Venn diagram, the research, when we consider what we face today, we've looked with the wisdom of the church, but also with the knowledge and understanding of research, we find opportunities. We always remember that from baptism, parents are told they are the first and foremost catechists of their children. So I share with you not all the, it would be impossible in our webinar to share all the research that has been done on this, but let me share four research insights that we're sharing with actually with NCCL and the work that they're doing. One is that parents are the most significant influence on the religious and spiritual outcome of young people. And the primary way by which Catholic identity becomes rooted in children's lives are the day-to-day religious practices in the family and the ways parents model their faith and share it in conversation, collaboration, and exposure to outside religious opportunities. We know from research that the family is the primary community where Catholic faith practices are nurtured and practiced. And fourth, the quality of a parent's relationships with their young people and their parenting style that they practice is a significant difference in faith transmission. And that would be a whole nother topic, but to know that the parenting style is really important in transmitting the faith, and that's something that we can work on in this model. We know that Dr. Christian Smith again says that all empirical data tells us that for intergenerational religious transmission today, the key agents are parents. We know that the key location is the home, supported by the formation of the parish. And we know that the key mechanism of formation is the ordinary life practices and identity. So we know that if we look at all the research, that it points to relationships, intergenerational formation, the role of the family, including adults, and that we need to not focus just on children. We certainly want to focus on children, but not to leave the parents out of the process. And this is not new. In Deuteronomy, we hear, do not forget the things your eyes have seen or let them slip from your heart as long as you live. Teach them to your children and to their children after them. So let's take some time to look at this integrated family faith formation that I believe is very achievable for many parishes in many different ways. If we look at the components of it, you may want to use them in different ways. You might have some slight different approach. But let me share what what I've learned. This, first of all, if this is what your community looks like on the first day of religious education, we should think about things. Or if this is the parent in the parking lot dropping off their child, maybe they look a little too happy. So we want to make sure that they get out of the car, unfasten the seatbelt, and come on in. The way I've kind of tried to think about this, that I hope is helpful, is that I consider it like changing lanes in traffic. I'm a very cautious driver, so this is kind of like how I change lanes. It may not be the way everyone does, but when we change lanes, we're aware of the traffic around us. When we're changing lanes into integrated family faith formation, I invite you to assess your situation. What are the circumstances in your parish or in your diocese? If I was changing lane, I would put my blinker on to help other people know what my intention is. In integrated family catechesis, if you are interested in doing that, we must communicate with families. We can't expect them to know why we're doing what we're doing if we haven't helped them to understand it. If I was, just before I would make my move into the other lane, I would check my mirror. And this is what in catechetical formation, I would say the importance of educating, of informing, and of inspiring leadership. So your pastor, your parish council, your finance council, your committees understand, and your parents know why you're doing what you're doing. And then finally, when you're ready, make your move, shift lanes into integrated family faith formation. So we're changing lanes. We aren't changing roads. Changing lanes into an intentional integrated family faith formation. So what does it involve? One of the things that I think it's important to note about this is changing lanes does not mean that we are changing roads. We are not changing the content. What we teach doesn't change. How we teach changes in the sense that we use both age-specific and intergenerational family faith formation strategies. And why we change is because of church teaching, that the church teaches parents are the first and foremost catechists to their children. And research tells us that formation that occurs in family and an intergenerational community has a long-term positive effect in the lifelong journey of a person's faith life. So I like to remember that church teaching is normative. It tells us who we could or should be. Research is descriptive. It tells us who we are. So when we put these two things together, I think that we have a really good starting point. Dr. Christian Smith says, parents, for better or worse, are the most influential pastors of their children and define for their children the role religious faith and practices ought to play in life. And I've told this in talks that I've given to parents, and I've had many parents say, I never thought of myself as pastoring my own children. So I think that's helpful for parents to hear that. In our changing lanes, we can look at the traditional school model. In the traditional school model, we use systematic comprehensive curriculum for children and adolescents. It is taught by volunteer catechists. Intentional faith formation ends in high school or following confirmation. It intentionally takes place just in the parish, and the catechesis is often content focused. When we look at integrated family faith formation, we use systematic comprehensive curriculum for children and adults. That doesn't change. It is still taught by volunteer catechists, but also by parents. In this model, parents are teachers and parents are learners. Intentional faith formation is lifelong for children, youth, and adults. It takes place in the parish and in the home, and the catechesis is kerygma focused. So we might look at how does a family model help busy parents with the most important job they'll ever have. I ask wherever I go, I ask catechetical leaders to give me some words or phrases about your families. and they give me lots of wonderful and interesting responses to that. But I will say, everywhere I go, two responses that I get everywhere are that my families are busy and my families are overscheduled. So this is something that we have to recognize is part of the culture that we live in. When I look at the catechetical model, when what's working in parents and family faith formation, I'd like to just suggest, if you are not implementing family faith formation, that maybe this model is something that you will consider, a model that includes parents. If the state of families and faith in your parish compels you, I'm suggesting this model as response. What does faith formation of families look like outside of an exclusively school model, and why this is optimal? I'd like to suggest that it includes essential components. It's practical, but it doesn't ask too much of families, but it does connect them enough to make a critical difference. I've worked with a group of people that have worked with me on this model for really decades now, and we work together to just try to find a way to communicate what is this, and we've come up with this branding, I guess you would say, a way to describe it, as that this is we call this model transform, because we have found over the years that it transforms individuals, it transforms families, and it transforms parishes to discipleship, to evangelization. We have witnessed an increase in stewardship as people have that sense of belonging and are experiencing their own spiritual growth. It leads them to an ethic of wanting to give back to build the kingdom of God. And so what are those three elements the components that I say are essential? The first one is a social or community building time. The second are grade level classes, but that also include adult sessions. And third, a family activity session. I really don't know what to call it. It's activity of many different kinds. I don't know how to describe that in one word, but it's families are actively being catechized together. And so the three elements of this we call our gather, grow, and guide. And I'll explain each of those to you as we go along here. What we are trying to do is change the paradigm. We are trying to change the paradigm from parish and parents, maybe, to a partnership with parents. That's the goal of Transform. And so we're looking at an integrated family faith formation model. The first part we call gather, and that's the importance of fellowship or networking for families. So gather is the first element. Social community building is the importance of fellowship and networking for families. Despite in our culture, there really is an age segregation that exists in our churches and in the broader culture. Children tend to be young children with young children, grade school children with grade school children, high school children with high school children. So we don't mix generations or age groups of children as much as I think might be optimal. So what we try to do is be intentional about this. We do know from research that a young person benefits from having other adults around them that help them to develop their faith and that sense of helping it stick into adulthood. And we do know that being part of intergenerational faith communities helps to do that. So religious socialization is the process by which people learn and adopt religious beliefs, values, and behaviors. And we have found that simply sharing food, sharing a meal, whether it's a donut or it's a simple dinner or cookies or coffee and juice, simple ways that we just are together in a friendly way that we come to know each other and talk to each other and develop relationships. One of the things to be aware of, if this is something that you say, I think that this is important and I want to make sure that this happens in my community, is to be attentive to the climate of your faith formation, be attentive to the climate in your parish. Climate refers to how people perceive the general environment of the community and its leaders, how people understand how they fit into the community, and how they feel when they're interacting in this community. Climate is a critical factor in producing a positive outcome in intergenerational faith formation. When I had friends here this weekend and we had our family model, someone noted that we had high chairs for young children and said that was, noted. I hadn't even thought of it, but she said that made someone feel welcome. And so the questions of climate are, how do I feel when I'm here? Do I have a positive or negative attitude when interacting here? Do I perceive this faith community as friendly, caring, and safe? Do I feel welcome, accepted, or do I feel judged and unsafe? And there's so many simple ways to achieve this. We can just create climate by paying attention to our greetings and our endings, to have a set warm greeting that we meet people with. Perhaps begin with a song, give them a handshake, welcoming people by name, having a prayer that everyone knows and everyone begins together, smile or greeting others. I have often said that if you want to do one thing for your parish, learn the names of someone else's children and call them by name when you see them. Simple things like that will change the climate of your parish and of your faith formation program. Just a way to think about this is you're offering hospitality. You are God's host or hostess. And to remember that tone is everything. What is the tone of our communication, whether it's verbal, written, or electronic? Is it warm or welcoming? And one more thing I would say about climate is transient. Climate can be changed. Whatever kind of climate you have that you want to improve, it is possible to do that by paying attention to these simple things of hospitality and tone and how we begin and end things. We can change climate. We can make it better. So I would say that we can look at this importance of gathering. Why? Because it develops community, because it fosters intergenerational relationships, because parents and families get support from each other, because we know belonging leads to believing. So another component of this is the GROW component. And this is the age-specific systematic comprehensive learning for children and youth. This is what you already know. This is what you already do. Familiar religious education curriculum. We use Alive in Christ, but whatever you use that offers that age-specific systematic comprehensive will work in this model. It expands the age-specific formation to include adults, and that's the difference. So we find in this model all ages are growing in faith. And so I just show you some age-specific systematic comprehension of children and youth that they're learning. And this looks like traditional religious education. This is what I've seen thrown out sometimes in some models of family faith formation, that we're not gathering children at certain age groups when developmentally they might be learning some things that are very important to learn at that stage of development. This model uses volunteer catechists, as I said before. It isn't anything that's unusual or different. You know how to do this. Children learn. What I love about textbooks is they're a tool, and they are usually a wonderful way to make sure that a child is learning all the kind of foundational things we want a child to learn through childhood and also through adolescence. We don't stop learning in grade school. We continue to learn through adolescence at all ages, even at young ages. But what is different about this is this age-specific learning for children and youth is also for adults. We don't stop growing in our faith, forming and deepening our faith because we're adults. We continue to grow and to learn. And so why this is why this is so important is that if the parents' calling is to pass on the faith, then this might be the learning curve from a traditional drop-off model to a family model. We have to know, what do we do with parents, and how we answer that is critical. So part of a successful family model is that we nurture the nurturer, to approach parents or guardians or grandparents in a way that's engaging and meaningful. It's because as they grow in their own faith, they're better equipped to pass on faith to their children. That means informing and forming them. Often the first strategy that we think of is to teach parents something. I believe the first thing is to engage them in something that they will recognize relates to their everyday life. That often means inspiring them, as well as educating them. There are many ways to do this. One of the easiest ways, one of the most natural ways that our church has been doing for years are small groups, small faith sharing parent groups. Um, one of the models that we have, their parents meet in small groups while the children are in their classes. And what we find is that, especially with young families, that are people that are, learning how to be parents, the help, the support, the inspiration they get from each other is amazing. And you'll see in this picture, if you look kind of straight ahead, you'll see an older couple. One of the things that makes this work is often to invite a more seasoned, an older couple to just facilitate it. I've always had such good responses to that, of people saying, I really loved hearing from them. These people that have already raised children, even though I'm with a peer group of people raising children themselves. A second thing I would offer you is my friend Al McCauley began in COVID doing short videos that he calls Fish on Fridays. And he describes them as, he said, enjoy a bite-sized nugget of information about our Catholic faith. Each episode features an insight into who we are, what we do, and what we believe as Catholics. It's like a tasty fish stick of faith formation. It's a little bit of a tongue twister there. But my friend Al began doing this. He has over 250 episodes. They are online. If you Google Al McCauley Fish on Fridays, they are perfectly free. And what I love about them is they're short, and they help facilitate discussion, and they're very good. One of the gifts that my friend Al has given me, I asked Al, my book Forming Families has 10 intergenerational sessions on Catholic identity, so what you would do when you bring the whole family together. And I said to Al, could you tell me what are some of your videos that might relate to the chapters in my book? And being the good friend he is, not only did he do that, but he also created discussion questions that went with each of his videos. So I just took an example here. We looked, the liturgical year is the second second session, and he showed what some videos were, and then he related questions to that people can use, that you can use for free with your adult family parenting catechesis. And here's a QR code if you're interested in getting that. Parent Cafe is another option that we can use with adults. It's a discussion method model. I don't probably have the time to explain it fully, but it's basically you take 3 questions on a certain topic. Often it's nice to have a little introduction to that topic, and each group you divide it into 3. Each group you assign 1 question to them. You have a scribe at each table who takes notes for that table. And then the second time around, you allow them to choose a second question, and they do the same thing. In the end, you collate what the scribe has collected, and you give that information back to parents. So they not only have the benefit of the discussion that they have the benefit of learning from the discussions of all the other tables. Some of the topics that we've used on parent cafes have been your child's self-esteem, moral confusion, technology in your family, bullying. We've discussed, why is religion, spirituality, and worship important, and how do you take on or respond to tough questions from your kids? So if that's of interest to you, I have questions with each of those topics that I'm always happy to share with you. Another simple idea is a parent panel. This is just an example of I asked some parents who had moved a lot, parents who had raised a child with special need, a parent that had raised some wonderful young adult children that I knew, and it had a few questions, and we just allowed them to be witness to other parents. That power of parent witness is huge. Just letting parents tell their story to other parents, and to offer practical ideas to families, and to share ordinary faith moments with them. One of the things that one of little bit of research I did was asking parents, what is one thing that's been essential to you about your faith that you'd like to pass on for children. And I just share this with you, what the results were, because I think it helps us understand what motivates parents. When we asked parents this question, three things came up consistently. One, that they wanted their children to know that they are loved by God. Two, they wanted their children to know that the church is a place where they will always belong. And three, they wanted their children to know that faith is always there for them, no matter what is going on in their life. And when I did this research, this reminded me of what we do and why we do it, and why it's so important to gather and to provide quality programs and faith formation for our parents to help them with their mission to evangelize and catechize their own children. And so the two critical factors that I think are something to consider in this model, one is the parent session, which I just spent some time explaining, to just to remember that we're nurturing the nurturer. The parent is the nurturer. How do we nurture that parent? And how do we approach them in ways that are informing and forming them and inspiring them? More than anything, help them to see how their faith relates to their everyday life. So the second critical factor is, what do we do with multiple generations together in a learning session, in an intergenerational session? What does a family activity look like? What makes bringing together children, teens, and parents effective? What does intergenerational family curriculum look like? So most of us in catechetical ministry weren't educated in how to do these two dimensions well, but take heart, because what you know about age-specific catechesis is a great foundation. And I'll just share some ideas with you here today. And there are many other ideas, but this is the guide component, that families are engaged in intergenerational faith formation activities. This is what sets it apart. The parish guides the parents, and parents guide their children in faith practices, discussions, and prayer. And so we look at what this family activity is, and I'm just going to share just a few ideas. There are just so many of them, but just so you have a little sense of what intergenerational curriculum looks like. This is one from the liturgical year, and this is one of the ones that's in the Forming Families book, where we just take a lighthearted way of approaching this. We had children, and we put T-shirts on them with the liturgical years, so they could the liturgical season, so they could see how that went through the years. Or we had our youth minister just take T-shirt after T-shirt off through the liturgical seasons of the year, so see that. But what was really at the heart of this session was that families made their own liturgical wheel. One of the things that was, they assembled it themselves, and so they looked at the different liturgical seasons and what the colors were associated with them and what were the feasts that were in those seasons. And then we invited them in this liturgical wheel. Where about are the birthdays in your family? Where is your anniversary, to connect the family live life with the liturgical life of the church. Here's just another sample of parents with their children, teaching them about baptism. Yes, they'll read it in the book, and that's wonderful. They'll read it in their textbook, but how much more impactful it'll be if also parents are showing their children what are the symbols of baptism, and what do we do in baptism, and just sharing together. As you can see, a very pleasant experience for families. And simply reading the Bible together. I can emphasize how impactful it has been to help families just learn to not be afraid to open the Bible, to read it, to discuss it, and to do that. Even I will say, when we first started, our parents really didn't always know how to even look up chapter and verse. And after a few years of practicing that together, they're now discussing and looking forward to learning more about Scripture. And then there is this is a cooperative game that we have called our it's called Follow the Star. Hopefully it'll be in volume 2, but it's a cooperative game about Advent, Christmas, and Epiphany. And there are different cards that families take. They kind of work through this wheel together, but they look at some of when they pull a card up, a card might be a faith fact, like who came to visit the Holy Family when Jesus was born. So this particular game is all about Advent, Christmas, and Epiphany. Or there they might have a tell about card, tell about a time when your family cared for someone in need. Or they might have a stop and think card. When have you had to trust God when you were sad or scared? So those are interesting what things I wanted to show you those because they were parents of high school students and young children, and everyone enjoyed playing a game like that. So those are wonderful ways to share your faith. Just another idea to share is this. What we did this for Lent, where we invited families to take a picture of something like that when you're fasting from Lent, or take a picture that shows what almsgiving means to you, or take a picture that inspires you to pray, take a photo of it, and then we asked them to send it to the parish, and then we put it in the PowerPoint. We also gave them what we call wonder questions, questions for them to talk about at home. I wonder, do I appreciate things that have been given to me? I wonder, is there something I can give to someone else in need? So those are just a few ideas to share. Other ideas are to give people prayer experiences. We have found family adoration. You can see even with young children is something. Why wait till people are 65 to experience family faith or adoration? Why not start them when they're children to learn to adore our God? Here's just another simple idea of this was a living rosary, and as the families prayed the Hail Marys, we lit candles, and so they could actually see their rosary and participate in it and learn to pray the rosary this way. One of the things that people have told me is that these questions were helpful as they were thinking about developing their own um, intergenerational activities, to ask yourself these questions. Is it active? Passive learning is really not ideal for intergenerational learning. Active learning is. Ask yourself, does it teach something? We don't play a game, we don't do a craft because we like the craft or we like the game. We do it because it's teaching us something. So always think of what's the purpose of what I'm doing. Is prayer involved? Is that something to think about? Do families have a chance to discuss things with each other? And question I say is it fun? Not everything you do will be fun, but once in a while, it's great if it's fun and it keeps families engaged. So integrated family model encourages dialogue between parent and child. It offers opportunities for discussions about faith and values and about their spiritual life. It provides activities for families to learn about faith. It invites families to practice faith in terms of prayer or service or worship. It cultivates conversations to develop so family members can grow in their ability to articulate their Catholic faith. What will make you successful? How can our content be relevant to family life? Framing spiritual content as it relates to a person's personal and family life. Again, active learning and finding that sweet spot of not too complex or not too simple. And as I said earlier, creating that comfortable climate and setting. And we also want to pay attention to different needs, to the audio learner, the visual learner, the kinesthetic learner when we're planning things. And just one idea that never fails is giving parents and families an opportunity to serve others. These are just some pictures of, we do an annual food packing box at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and when our teens go on to college, they often come back and say that was the thing they really enjoyed most. So we look at gather, grow, and guide in this transform model. And just to kind of summarize what I had just everything I've been talking about, to remember that fellowship, that spending time in fellowship helps us to build community, making sure we learn other people's names. One of the big things that I believe has made this program successful is that every year, every family brings the snacks or brings some kind of contributes to what we're eating, and they take a turn setting up and they take a turn cleaning up. Because we're trying to cultivate a culture of family, not a culture of a restaurant where they come and breeze through and get it, but they're part of it. They're part of creating it. The second or pure level classes, there's age-specific, systematic, comprehensive curriculum for each grade level that we talked about. But we also remember that there's an adult component to that, where we talk about parenting and faith, about communication. Parents are always looking for help with that, and just understanding how faith and family life are are our priorities. Um, we believe that this model works well because we know that parents want to be involved and learn more about their children's faith formation. We also know that they hunger for their own faith development. What they do, we also know is they struggle with a lack of time. So we've experienced that when we give families an opportunity to do this on a regular basis, it matters to them. And remember that the family activity can be many different things. And I hope that the book that I have and other things that you'll find online, I think you'll find some wonderful resources for that. What this gives families is a shared experience that they continue to talk about at home, that when parents work with their children, they're learning about their faith while they're doing these activities with their own children. So if you've never dipped your toe into family catechesis, how might you start? And I'm going to give you some suggestions here. One is to try a family intergenerational session. Try one for Lent or Advent, or maybe to begin or end the year, or some special Mardi Gras, or some special. Oh, it is Mardi Gras today. You could have an intergenerational session, or to try a pilot group of families in a family program, which is how I started. To discuss this with your pastor and or your pastoral council, or with a short presentation helping them to see it, or visit a parish with a family model. So if you've never done it, try one of those things. Well, what if you've waded into the waters of family catechesis, but you want to go deeper? I would really suggest you try a pilot family program alongside your traditional program. You don't have to pull that away from people till they've had a chance to have some people experience it. But what we found is by word of mouth, people migrated over to the family model. Another idea is to start a family program with a family model with say a younger age group. Say you start it with your first grade and under, and then the next year you add second grade, and the next year you add third grade. So expand whatever it is you are doing if you've started this. There will be challenges. I think I should be honest about that. This is change, and not everyone likes change. But communicating the concept of family faith formation is a challenge. People, especially those in leadership, haven't ever seen this model. That might be the biggest thing that is very difficult. I always say people know what a church looks like, they know what a school looks like, but they don't know what this looks like because they've never seen it. There can be, I have heard that there can be some fallout from families who experience it. And I talk about the magic sentence. The magic sentence that I've used is, just give me a year. Try this for a year. And if at the end of the year you have found no value for your family, we will talk about an alternative for you. But I don't know how families can come together, and going to a ball game, they'll say, is meaningful for their family. So how can it not be more meaningful if we're doing something that's God-centered? There are models that are not research-based, and some people have experienced those and have had disappointing results. I understand that. And you may need some adjunct help. Perhaps you need someone just to help with the snacks. So something like that. I'd like to just end, kind of close with what I found are the benefits of this model, of this approach. Families will have a common experience about forming faith. They'll continue to discuss and to hold common memories. Common experiences in a family have an intrinsic value. A common experience learning about faith is of infinite value. There is an efficient and effective methodology of learning. This is an efficient and effective methodology of learning. There are two primary teachers of the two primary teachers of faith, parents, are coached to teach their own children and are learning together with their children. And since the teachers will go home with their children and youth, the discussion and the formation continue in the home. They have the possibility to develop faith not just by the hour they are at church, but in their daily family life. A family will literally have more things in their home, reminders of faith that they have personal connection to, like a prayer they read together, or a project like an Advent wreath that they made. These things are in their home, and they continue to teach indirectly. This model creates a warm, caring community that has been identified as a component in multiple research studies as of high importance in effective transmission of faith generationally. Parents get to know catechetical leaders in a more meaningful way. They do things together and they have different conversations than they would have in a traditional religious education program not involving parents. This partnership between parents and the parish is strengthened by the connections of these relationships. Parents are more likely to share significant events in their lives and so strengthen the pastoral relationship as well as the personal relationship because you know each other. Children, youth, and adults witness others engaged in lifelong faith formation as opposed to exclusive child or youth-centered model. Parents aren't making, this is for practical thing, they're making multiple trips to the parish to drop off children at different age levels for different sessions. The whole family comes and goes together, helping their busy schedules. This model speaks to parents' deepest motivations to pass on faith. It cultivates a relationship with God as the foundation of what we hold on to and what holds us together in the challenges of life. It contributes to strengthening a child's moral compass, developing a North Star to navigate moral choices they will face. This approach builds up the faith community, and this model honors and cultivates age-specific developmental faith learning, faith development, combined with the power of intergenerational family experience between youth, children, and adults. It's really a natural way of how we're wired as human beings. God wired us this way, and it is emerging in vibrant faith communities. It is challenging in some ways because it is counterculture. Our culture does not encourage families spending time together about talking about God or meaningful ways, so that's countercultural in that way. But it is essential for the future life of our children and our church parishes. Just a reminder that families are not a problem, they are first and foremost an opportunity. And I think I'm going to stop there, Jess, so that we can have just a few minutes at least for, does that sound okay? Great. So should I stop sharing? What should I? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Kathy. We'll take a few questions in a moment, so send in your questions if you haven't already. And just a heads up, we did quite a few, and if we don't get to them, I will send them to Kathy and we will follow up in an email with the recording and answers to those questions. And while you're sending in any questions, I want to share a little about OSV's approach to forming families and faith formation. Here at OSV, we don't just want families to learn about the faith, we want them to live it and share it with others within the home and beyond. That's why every program in our 1st through 8th grade series, Alive in Christ, Discovering and Sharing the Kerygma, has 2 approaches to family faith formation. The first model is parent-led with multi-age home session plans, and the second model is centered around weekly grade level sessions in the parish for 3 weeks out of the month. Each model has more than 35 monthly family gather sessions on the unit themes. And Kathy's book, Forming Families, is a great addition and companion for our Alive in Christ programs. Her book accompanies parents as they connect their Catholic faith and their family and contains complete family sessions that are flexible, practical, and easy to use. Forming Families is available to purchase on orderosv.com, and you can also receive a free copy with our early order incentive promotion until the end of May. And that code is at the bottom of the screen. If you would like to request a sample and learn more about Alive in Christ or any of our other curriculum programs, scan the QR codes on the screen or call the number to speak with one of our representatives. We're confident that you'll love what you see. And now we'll get started with the Q&A. All right, Kathy, so a lot of these questions had to do with more about diving deep into the logistics of the segments and the specific model. So our first question is, can you talk more about your parish's program? And do you typically offer this on a Sunday before or after Mass? And what have you found is the best time frame for these programs? And typically, how long are these sessions and how often do you have them?
Sure. Thanks for the question. The ideal, what I found is the ideal for this is, sorry, I'm getting a little feedback here. I'm going to try and turn this off. What I have found is the ideal time is to do this twice. And I'll tell you the reason is because sometimes people can't come to, what I think life happens. And if they miss one time a month,
That seems to be okay. But when we miss twice a month, I think when we miss a whole month and come back 2 months later, that can be a little too long. So that's just one thought that I have is ideally twice a month is great. We do offer it on Sunday morning. We are able to offer it on Sunday morning after a mass or Monday evening, because some people can do weekends and some people can do weekdays. The time is, for the total time is about 2 hours. So we're asking parents to come, families to come twice a month for 2 hours, but that's everybody coming, and that includes the fellowship, that includes their systematic catechesis, and that includes the intergenerational experience. One of the things that I didn't say is with children, we do a chapter in a child's book here at the parish. We send a chapter home with the families that they bring back the next time that they come, and then we do another chapter. So every month they're doing 2 chapters at the parish and 1 chapter at home. And we just have a little simple reward system for bringing the chapters back. There's no punishment if they don't, but there is a reward if they do. So I hope that answers that question.
Yes, absolutely. We also got a lot of questions regarding parishes that also have a Catholic school and how this program could be blended into that or incorporated with those Catholic school families.
Oh, we love having Catholic school families come to us. What we do, one of the things that we do is that we do not do we don't use the same textbook that they use in the school. That's kind of a key to that. And sometimes I make a deal with parents of Catholic children in Catholic schools that they don't have to do the homework, because I know they're also getting more they're getting more that type of catechesis in their school. So that's been something that's helped a lot. Parents, what we offer is not something that the Catholic schools do. Catholic schools don't have programs like this that I'm aware of, and perhaps there are some that I don't know about, but this is perfectly compatible with a Catholic education. The discussions that families have, the experiences that they have together, the fellowship of knowing other families in the parish besides simply the Catholic school parents is great for those families, but it's also great for the families that are in faith formation to know families in the Catholic schools, so that religious socialization is just expanded beautifully.
We keep getting really good questions. We'll just take a few more. Do you ever have empty nesters attend to engage with younger families, attending adult sessions, etc.?
Yes. Yeah, we do. One of the things that we, after years of doing this, one of the things that we discovered was that when families grew out of this, in the sense that their children were grown, went to college, or went off to lead their adult lives, that the parents felt bereft, that they felt like they had a community and then that they lost it. And so we began a program called Emeritus, which simply is that while families are gathering as family in they come and share the fellowship with us. So parents and any adult that wants to joins us in fellowship, and then when we're doing our family activity, they gather together and they have a discussion or something that they do together. And then when we move into the age specific groups, they join the adults, and it's worked beautifully. It really is, here comes everybody in a good sense.
All right, we'll just take 2 more questions. This one has to do with the challenge of maybe teenagers and keeping them engaged. So if you could talk more about maybe this model with high school youth ministry and maybe confirmation for older kids and teens and how that incorporates.
One of the things I would say is we do some additional sacramental prep for First Eucharist, First Communion. We do it with our school and our family program. And same with confirmation. Our confirmation is later, it is in high school. But while from 3 years old through high school, they're all a part of the family. They're a part of the family model. They come with their families. The one thing I can tell you is that I do confirmation interviews, which are done at the end of junior year of high school. And a lot of times the teenagers, I'm not the youth minister, they don't know who I am or what I care about. That isn't really part of their experience. And I'll always ask the question, how is it being in family program? How is it coming with your family? And every response has been, yeah, that's great. I talk about things with my family that I wouldn't talk about otherwise. Or one young man said to me, yeah, my friend goes to a church and like their parents don't come with them. Like he thought that was odd. And I asked, always asked, is there anything we could do better? And one young woman said, this is my favorite. She said, I said, is there anything we could do better or different? She said, I think you serve pulled pork too often. So it's at the dinner. So I thought, well, if that's her biggest complaint, I think that's pretty good from a teenager. So we have had, I think it's just part of the culture. Again, I think it's part of the culture that they see other teens there. They actually like coming and seeing their friends there. It's the same as if they would all go to a ball game together or something. They'd all be at, it's an activity together that it seems natural, and we just don't have problems with that. Haven't had problems with that.
All right, perfect. One last question. I'm trying to narrow everything down and condense them. This is more into the logistics and the specifics of the gather and guide components. We've got a lot of questions regarding, the parent sessions, the child sessions, when they're all together. So specifically, does the parent or guardian stay with the child during both the gather and guide and growth segments, or just the growth portion?
They stay together. Parents and children stay together at the gathering part, this religious socialization part. They gather together, and they are together at the guide part, the intergenerational activity. When they separate is the grow part, and that's when children are in developmental catechesis, youth are in developmental catechesis, and adults are in their adult session. I hope that answers it.
Yes, yes. And then there was kind of a two-part to that. And then can you share further ideas and insight on the parent cafe and how to start something like that or something similar?
The parent cafe, I'd be happy to, if someone sends me a request for that, I'd be happy to send you some information about that. I have a little PowerPoint that is prepared about that, and I also can give you the topics and the questions. I've done that for our deacons. I've done that for NCCL, so I'm happy to share that model. It's something we adapted from actually a county program for foster parents had a kind of a cafe type program like that, and we adapted it for faith formation. So I'm happy to share what we've done. But that would take a little more time than you probably are going to give me. So I'll have you just send me an email or get a hold of me through OSB, and I'll be happy to share that.
Perfect. I'll definitely be sending a lot of follow-up questions to you, Kathy, because we got a lot of them, and we'll send that along with the recording. We don't want to keep you guys for too long, so we'll let you go. But just as a final reminder, I'll be sending out a recording of the link of today's webinar, as well as those questions that we couldn't get to answer. And then finally, here are those QR codes again, if you're interested in Kathy's book, as well as our other curriculum programs. And we hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.